You're listening to House of Football, brought to you by Coca-Cola, official partner of the Premier League.
Welcome back to House of Football, brought to you by Coca-Cola, official partner of the Premier League. I'm your host, Graham O'Toole, and of course we are joined by Sports Joe's Enda and Gerard, as always. And gents, we're going to get stuck into it straight away by talking about, after 7 games so far, who has mostly impressed you and who has disappointed you. Enda, we'll start with you. Who has mostly impressed you this season so far?
Mostly impressed me.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one because everyone's been a little bit mixed bag throughout the season so far. Liverpool started with a stormer but haven't kicked on since then. Arsenal have been stuttering. Man City looked unbelievable in the first week and then just haven't really gotten to that level. But I guess if you're talking about teams who have really impressed and have gone above and beyond what we would have expected of, it's probably Sunderland.
Yeah.
Because they have had loads of new signings coming into the Premier League. They're a new side coming into the Premier League again. Everyone knew they were going to be good at home, but I think generally they just look like a really solid outfit. They're probably not going to be a top half team by the end of the season, as it's looking now. But in terms of what you expect from a good side that comes up from the Championship, physicality, pace, rugged in defence, and can score goals, Sunderland kind of tick all those boxes. So by the looks of it, I think they're going to be safe by maybe just the start of the new year. They could end up being someone who ends up just fighting just below that middle of the table mark. So that's more than impressive for a side coming up to the Premier League. And it's kind of handy for them too that you've got teams like West Ham and Wolves, established Premier League teams, who are doing so badly at the start of the season. Yeah, well, they've been doing badly. There's always a few sides that tread water, but eventually it catches up with them. Leeds did it for a couple of years. Villa did it before they went down. They just about stay in by the skin of their teeth every year, but eventually it does catch up, and that seems to be what's happening with West Ham and Wolves. But you do have to give credit to the teams that have come up. Even Burnley have been better than most people would have expected as well. They have already got more points than most of the teams that have come up in the last couple of years. So, that is a bonus. It's Sunderland topping the charts of most impressive for Enda. Gerard, who's it for you?
I think for me, I tried to divide this into sort of top, middle and bottom half, or bottom third of the Premier League. For me, the most impressive overall probably been Everton, who've impressed me the most, just because given how turgid they've been in over the years, it's just an amazing turnaround. I think it's taken a new stadium and signing Jack Grealish, etc., and really sort
which
of
has been more important, the Hill Dickinson or Jack Grealish's calves?
I actually think Grealish,
yeah,
because Goodison was always a fiery atmosphere. It's just given them a bit of a.
The players are always more important.
Yeah, and I think the stadium will work out great for them in the long run. But I just think, given where they were, and Enda mentions that decline that teams go on year after year after year. I think Everton were on that decline, and I think it was only a matter of time before they were getting relegated. So this is quite a big turnaround. Now they just seem to have a rejuvenation in the way they're playing. I wouldn't be surprised if they're pushing top 8, top 7 this season. They've actually had a couple of results where they could have turned draws into wins as well, against West Ham and against Villa. So they could be on even more than they're on at the moment. But just also in the impressed category, in the sort of top area, Arsenal have impressed me the most. And then in the bottom area, I say bottom, but they're actually mid-table, Sunderland, like Enda says. They're so pragmatic. Now, I don't think it will last, and they will. I think they'll have half a dozen games where they struggle, but they've got that points buffer now. I don't think they'll finish mid-table. I think they'll finish 15th, 16th, but that's a turn up for the books, given how they came up and given how promoted teams have done in recent years. Yes, helped by West Ham and Wolves being not very good, but they need that buffer. They've got it by being pragmatic. They've not just come up and tried to play football in a stylistic way. This is a different style. This is pragmatism, and I like it because look across the Premier League, people chucking long throws into the box, people being direct. I thought this would happen, and Sunderland is sort of catching that wave.
Yeah, I love when a Championship team come up with a player who are just immediately takes the league by storm, and Isidore has done that, especially when it's the striker and it's his type of striker where he's physical, strong, gets behind the defence, bullies defenders. It's just fun to watch. He's just a fun player to watch.
It's funny because that's the way forward lines are going now. Getting a big striker in there. Look at Newcastle sign Walter-Made, etc. And Isidore, I could see him moving to one of like the top 7 or top 8 clubs in the future, because I think fans will be crying out for these. We want that big striker back, and it's just a harp on to old days. But I can see that happening, and he's been fantastic.
On the Everton stuff, like, I think you can look at it two ways. The result at the weekend against Crystal Palace is huge for them, because the way that changes their season from being actually just a little bit like decent, but that was a disappointing result at home, to turn it around to get that winner against Crystal Palace, who have also been a team that we should mention as being impressive. I think that changes the momentum. It just keeps the positivity around Everton, which I think is Everton are quite an emotional club, and the fans run on the emotion of how the team are doing. I think the players always react to that as well. So to get that win, and for Grealish to do it as well, like that's the difference when you have a player like Grealish.
Has he been the signing of the season so far? So he's got 4 assists and 1 goal and immaculate vibes.
In terms of what he does to the in terms of what he does to the team, like how much better he makes Everton.
Yeah.
Yes, I would say he's probably the signing of the summer. I we'll get to Liverpool later on in the show, but I don't understand why Ekiteke has been benched for Liverpool, because before that I would have said he was the signing of the summer. He's looked amazing since he's come on, and Isak's Isak, but he hasn't done what Ekiteke has been doing since the start of the season. But in terms of like the difference that Grealish makes to Everton versus the difference Ekiteke makes to Liverpool, it's Grealish for me.
Enda mentioned Crystal Palace. We have to give them a mention. 19 games unbeaten until Grealish stepped up and scored that winner. Like, how do you rate Oliver Glasner's season so far?
He's the the next big job that comes up. He's going to be top of most people's list, probably alongside Iraola, but Glasner's probably top there. Yeah, he just suits the style so much. And what Palace seem to do is, whether they might lose a player, but they seem to re-sign that player in just a different form that slots right into that position. And I've been massively impressed with them. They're so hard to play against at Selhurst Park. Fans are great, but yeah, massively impressed by them. And long may it continue, because I think the Premier League does need a bit of that. And Enda alluded to it at the start of the programme. It's been a bit of an inconsistent start, and that sort of 5th to 15th is a bit of a big bulge of teams that are all pretty similar. So it's good to have someone like Palace sort of rising to the top there. Yeah, I think it's good for the Premier League.
And there's been a lot of talk about Palace with obviously winning the FA Cup and Community Shield. They're in 6th, but Bournemouth are in 4th. Only 2 points off the top end.
Yeah, and it's years and years of development under Iraola, and just when he came from Spain first, he did struggle a little bit, but then once it clicked, that was it. It was all up from there, and his sides have been really impressive. Sometimes you'd expect, especially when you try to do that style of play with Bournemouth or a club like Bournemouth, that the openness of it would really be their detriment, and the players physically sometimes struggle to keep up with it, but I think they've been fantastic. They've recruited really well. The difference between the likes of Bournemouth, and you'll see it now, already saw it with Crystal Palace, but they've dealt with it quite well, is what do Bournemouth do once they lose Semenyo, or once they lose Kluivert? Like if they start, because it does look like Semenyo is going to be gone within the summer. He's one of the most sought after players in the league right now. It's like, how do they deal with that? How do they deal with the recruitment? Because you do see clubs like Bournemouth, and Southampton did it for a while, is that they can, once they get systems in place, they can do really well. But what happens when you take the manager out of it, and then you take the recruitment team out of it, start losing the players? It's like, how do they deal with that in the long term? I think it's difficult for clubs like Bournemouth to stay up there.
What I would say about someone like Bournemouth, and in the past Brighton, and maybe last season before Brentford, is that these 3 teams, they've all got something in common, and that's that the fans don't get too carried away when the team are on bad form. And I think that's really massively important. In this day and age, where we're talking about statistics and positions and tactics constantly, we don't talk enough about what the environment's like to play in, and the fans and the emotion of it. And teams like Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford, let's be honest, they don't have much of a history. So I think when you lose a few games, you don't see that knee-jerk reaction that you see in other teams. You don't get into crisis too often. And that allows teams like Bournemouth and Brighton in the past and Brentford in the past to actually grow, learn from mistakes and grow without this social media massive backlash, get the manager out, change this, change that, which I do believe impacts players negatively and impacts managers' decisions. And I think that it's good to see that, because these teams have all overachieved in the past, and it's good to see that fans actually do have an impact on the way a team can grow and can perform, I think, and it's understated, I think, now.
Well, part of that is also down to the ownership.
Yeah.
The correlation between all three of these clubs is
Yeah.
they're owned by people who make decisions based off statistics, long-term planning. Like they're not in football they're not even in football to win anything in particular. They're in football to get these sides overperforming to where they should be, and they've all achieved that so far. And they will run the clubs to the point of they take the emotion out of things. They're not trying to make them the best team in the world. They don't care if they play a certain brand of football, as long as that brand of football is successful on the pitch, and they recruit they recruit for the team, not for a manager in particular. So they're very well run clubs, but I don't think they'll ever reach that extra.
No, there's always a ceiling. There is,
like,
that's the caveat. Yeah,
there is definitely a ceiling with Bournemouth, mainly down to the size of their stadium. They've got the smallest stadium in England, or smallest stadium in the Premier League, one of the smallest stadiums in the top leagues in England. So that itself presents a problem for Bournemouth to sort of expand on it. But
let's move from who's impressed you to who has disappointed you. Enda, you briefly touched on Liverpool there. Is that your main disappointment so far?
I think I think Liverpool have been decent, and they've been struggling in certain elements of the game. I think if I was talking about Liverpool specifically, disappointing has been Mo Salah. I sort of said it at the start of the season that under the new style of play that Arne Slot's playing, with Isak coming in, with Ekiteke coming in, with Frimpong right back instead of Trent, all these changes make an impact, and I didn't expect Mo Salah. My prediction for the league was that Mo Salah would score less than 13 goals, and I'm feeling fairly confident right now, because
what's on now, two?
He's struggling.
Yeah, he is. He's struggling. He's struggling,
and I think he's been disappointing. It's been, and as a Liverpool fan, or if I were a Liverpool fan, I would be disappointed in the way Mo Salah's playing, because it is like times he's just making the wrong decision on Mo Salah-like decisions. He's been really poor.
If his name wasn't Mo Salah, would he been dropped?
I'm not sure Liverpool have the depth in that position. That's the problem. Is that you could take Cody Gakpo out of the team and slot in Ekiteke. You could take Ekiteke, put him in Isak's position. You could play Isak out left. Not ideally, but you could play him out left. I don't think they have anybody that could really play in Mo Salah's position, unless you're completely changing your style of play and you just put Jeremy Frimpong in there and play him as a right winger, sort of like he played at Bayer Leverkusen, even though he wasn't starting in that position necessarily.
Jared, who are you going for?
I was gonna go for Liverpool. I just thought about it and thought, it's been close. All their games have been close. They could have full points. They could have half of that. But I'm actually going to go for Forest. Talking about owners who take the emotion away from the team. Forest are the perfect example of an owner who just places too much emotion on what's going on. It is a travesty that they lost Nuno. And look at what's happening.
Yep.
It's just the finest example of an owner getting too involved in the playing side. And you can sort of see him in his executive area for every game, just sort of he's living every kick, living everything. He's got his hands in his head in his hands constantly. And granted, I don't think Forest are actually a European side in the long run, but they shouldn't be where they are. And I think there's a really, really strong chance they go down this season. I think it could spiral. I think it already is spiraling, let's be honest. The fans, I think they'll have a Europa League campaign, so the fans will be happy with that, but really, what must they be thinking? They've lost their best manager they've had in decades. Literally decades. And he's gone for non-footballing reasons. That doesn't really happen anymore. You usually get sacked for footballing reasons. It's for non-footballing reasons this guy's gone. And yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm less than impressed with Nottingham Forest.
I saw a close-up when Newcastle scored the second last weekend of Gibbs White's face. What must he be thinking
exactly.
after signing that contract
Yeah.
and turning down Spurs? We're going to move on to managers' report card. We've got selected managers from the Premier League, and after 7 games, I want you guys to rate them like a report card, A, B, C, D, E, F, and we'll see if you agree or where you lie. We're going to start with Ruben Amorim. So after 7 games, 10 points, 3 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, sitting in 10th. And how do we rate old Ruben's performance so far? The silence says it all.
Honestly, and people will not agree with me here, it has not been as bad as it seems. The outcry and outrage and media attention is completely overblown on Man United. Now, bear in mind, I will take into account the Grimsby Town defeat was awful. It came at the wrong time, but if you look at the actual table, Man United are only 3 points off the top 5. They're 3 points behind Manchester City. So, yes, there are issues on the pitch. Will they be 3 points behind Man City by the end of the year? Maybe not. Will they be in the top 5 by the end of the year? Not based on what they're showing on the pitch right now. However, I do think the boom to bust nature of talking about Man United is tiresome. If they win a game, it's their players are starting to really click into the system. If they lose a game, Man United could win 4 on the trot. The next game, if they lose, is a disaster. That's the way that the media.
Well, the fella won't be able to get his hair cut then if it was 4 on the
exactly.
trot, which would be a disaster.
I think I would be more heartbroken for him more than anything.
But what that's highlighted is that they barely win 3 in a row, let alone 5.
Yeah,
They barely win 2 in a row. That's what this guy's highlighted. But anyway,
so I'm going to say that it has not been like an F or even a D. I'm going to give Ruben Amorim a C+.
C+. Okay. Do you dock him for not looking at penalties?
His body language is bad.
That is killing me. Look at the
penalty. His body language
penalty.
is bad, but he really looks like a person who is struggling. He is struggling out there. I think he's just so frustrated because here's why I give Ruben Amorim a slight pass, is that if you watch the United games in detail, the vast majority of what goes wrong at Man United is player error. It's not system based. It's not like he's just throwing them out in the pitch. A lot of the time, they do loads of right things, and then the key moment, the one thing that goes wrong in the pitch is player error, and that is why I think Ruben Amorim looks so frustrated all the time. Like, Bayindir has cost United 4 or 5 goals this year by just not being a very good goalkeeper. Harry Maguire against Brentford, that is a player error. That is not system error. So you can't legislate for that. And there was a couple of games where Ahmed had a couple of chances where all he had to do was square the ball to Sesko or to Mbeumo, and they would have scored. Like, that is, I don't know if you can really legislate for players doing that and just making actually there was 2 player errors in the first Brentford goal. There was I think it was Dalot. Dalot was carrying the ball forward. Cunha makes a run. He's straight through on goal. Dalot is in the middle. Dalot undercooks his pass. If he actually gets proper contact on the ball, Cunha is in for a goal. Dalot undercooks his pass, passes straight to the Brentford defender. He clears the ball. Harry Maguire is in the wrong place, and Brentford score, and suddenly the whole stadium is a disaster. So I don't know. I'm giving Amorim a slight
C+. What do we say? C+, Jared? Where are you going?
I'm going D-.
Okay.
Oh.
So, okay, the only thing that's saving Amorim from an F is that the 3 wins. One was against newly promoted Burnley, skinny your teeth. One was against Chelsea, who had 10 men for about 100 minutes, and the other was against newly promoted Sunderland. Fair enough. It's not going to last till December. So I agree with Enda in a sense that there's a lot of individual mistakes here, and this isn't just an Amorim thing. Actually, I think the majority of the issues at Man United are not to do with Amorim, but he is not the man to take them forward. We talk about errors there. Yes, there's errors, but those errors have been happening for too long. And what do we say about good managers? They make players better. He has not made the players better. And he had a good summer, by the way. They had a really good summer. This isn't a carry on from the summer and, didn't get the players in that they wanted. No, he did. He got the players in that he wanted. Yes, there's a lot of human errors, which you can't legislate for, but when they happen again and again and again, the one thing you can legislate for is effort that they're putting in, and I don't believe they're necessarily playing for the manager.
Okay.
D-.
Can I make one final point on the player error issues? Bruno misses a penalty against Fulham, having it been delayed for 3 to 4 minutes. Now, his excuse to the ref bumping him, get over it. But at the same time, Bruno misses a penalty, that game's a win. Then against Brentford, Nathan Collins, stonewall red card. And then a 5-minute delay before Bruno gets to hit that penalty. He misses again. That is consequential on Ruben Amorim's career. That could be the difference between Man United being 5 wins and 1 draw and 1 defeat so far this season. Instead, they're on 3 wins, 3 losses and one draw.
One manager that has 5 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat is Mikel Arteta, and a week is a long time in football, Gerard, because they went from 5 points behind to 1 point ahead of Liverpool. Everything seems sunny at the Emirates.
Yeah.
How do you rate Mikel Arteta?
I'm going A- on Arteta. The only thing that's stopping him getting A or an A+ is just those 2 results against Liverpool and City, and I do believe he was conservative in that, but you don't see many teams these days, since City a few years ago, who just get past mid-table teams with such ease and without conceding, by the way. I do believe good defences do win you titles. You got to go at the other end as well and be clinical, but they can lose a few players now, and it's sort of still it's okay. Odegaard's constantly injured at the moment. Are you really noticing him gone? Not really when he comes in and out of the team. Saka hasn't been fully fit for a long time, but they're coping pretty well without them. So Arteta for me, A-, very close to an A+ or A*, whatever you call it.
Have Liverpool's bad form kind of attributed to Arteta all of a sudden looking like Fergie?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're being quite generous to Arteta here. I'd probably lean more in like the B+ sort of zone for him, because had Liverpool not let this slip a little bit, then Arsenal would be in trouble. Like, there was a stage where, just a couple of weeks ago, that it looked like Arsenal were out of the title race because of how close the title races have been in the last couple of years and how fine the margins are. But I get, you do have to give them credit where credit's due. They do get the results that they expect to get. I think where you see Arsenal's undoing is against the bigger sides, and to win the titles you need to beat the better sides.
He's under so much pressure, Arteta. He needs to win a title this year.
Yeah, if he doesn't win Champions League or Premier League, do you reckon he's gone?
Yeah, it won't be long. Yeah. If they've got a ready-made replacement who's like a big name, then he's under so much pressure, because Arsenal fans will be saying Liverpool aren't as good as everyone thinks. City are not really back. Another year of transition. How have Arsenal not won the title yet?
I'd be willing to dock him another grade for not staying in his 6-yard box.
That's accepted as well. This is going to be an interesting one. Keith Andrews, okay, Brentford, currently in 16th, 7 points, 2 wins, 1 draw, 4 losses. We do have to account for the players they lost in Norgard, Wizza and Buemo. What are we saying? And how do we rate Keith Andrews' first managerial stint in the Premier League?
I mean, taking everything into account, and context is key when you're talking about this, I think he's like a B-, a C+, B- zone. Like, to lose Mbeumo, Norgard, and like the 2 of them are just the exceptional players, especially Mbeumo. Then you go and lose Wissa to Newcastle. This is your first Premier League managerial career. Like, it's incredibly impressive what he's done so far. And given the first video that came out of his training session at the start of the season, I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well at all. Set pieces will be key for them. He was their set piece coach. They're getting a lot of wins from set pieces. That could be enough to keep them up, and if they stay up, then now we'll see what he does with a transfer budget. But yeah, I think anything other than relegation will be a success for Keith Andrews this year.
Yeah.
Is Enda looking at it with Irish tinted glasses?
So I've been in the country about 3 or 4 months. What did Keith Andrews do to the Irish public, by the way? Because in the summer, every single person I spoke to said it's going to go wrong. Who's Irish? Every single person. And I thought, whoa, what's he done? What? And that's probably the point. What has he done? Not a lot. I said this in the summer. I think potentially the opinion of him in the summer of not being an experienced manager overclouded the fact that Brentford are an extremely well-run team. I'm giving him a C+, but could give him a B-. As you mentioned, lost all those players. I don't think he's a long-term Premier League manager. I think he's possibly an EFL manager. However, as we mentioned earlier, he's going to get that time at Brentford. Really pragmatic. He's obviously got the energy in it. And that video from the start of the season, he's going to start looking more and more like a genius. We're going to revision history on that and look at it and think, what a great communicator he is. But yeah, Brentford are a really well-run club. I trust the decisions they make pretty much top to bottom. And it's looking like a decent decision so far.
I think you just met Irish people.
Yeah, we're a pessimistic bunch.
We're naturally pessimistic.
Okay, yeah.
One team and one manager who hasn't been talked about so far in today's episode, and they've been quietly going about their business, are Spurs and Thomas Frank. In third, 14 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. Not a bad start.
Yeah, B+ for Frank. I think the philosophy and the mentality suits Spurs on the face of it. Now, there has been a few games, a few instances where he's possibly been too cautious in places and isolating the front creative players and the front players. But I do think Frank is a great fit. I was so intrigued to see how he'd do when he'd come out of that cocoon that is Brentford. As we keep mentioning, well run, you get a lot of time. The fans always love you, whatever you do. Tottenham's a bit more of a cauldron, I'd say. He's coped well so far. I think he'll really fit. He just, when results aren't quite going your way, that style might not always work, but I think his general philosophy, his communication style, everything like that has been good so far. Spurs probably where you'd just above where you'd expect them to be honest. I don't think it's massive overachievement so far. So in my eyes, that's a B.
Yeah, fairly decent. Like, I think, and this is not to take credit away from Thomas Frank because he is a really good manager, but I think he is benefiting from the foundations that were laid by Ange Postecoglou in terms of the players that they brought in, the recruitment, and then they've also added to that. Like, Spurs have recruited really well this year. If you look at their side, and even like the injuries really hurt Spurs last year, and they've got those players fit. Like, their back line with Udogie now a year under his belt as a Premier League player. Porro's a solid wing back or right back. Van de Ven, Romero's, that's a really solid back line altogether. But then they added the key players that they needed. If you thought of Spurs last year, what were they badly in need of? Defensive midfielder. They brought in Paulinho. They needed better wingers that weren't losing the ball every time they got it. They brought in Kudos, the best winger that they could have got in their price range, and a centre attacking midfielder to link it all together in Xavi Simons. So that, like, those 3 players, they bring Spurs to the next level, and Thomas Frank is reaping the rewards.
Not sure about the goalkeeper at Spurs.
No, Vicario,
not sure.
Not long term.
No, but anyway, side note.
And finally,
West Ham in a few years.
Gerard, will go with you. It's your boy Unai Emery. Not a great start, but look, you've picked up 13th currently, 9 points, 2 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. But only Forest and Wolves have scored less goals than you guys. How do we rate the start of the season for Unai?
Villa are a D-, Emery's a C-. Really bad summer for Villa, really. Didn't get the players in that they wanted. It was such a stagnant summer because they were waiting to sell potentially Martinez, which was a domino effect. Waiting to sell maybe 1 or 2 others to see how that went, and it just ended that we were sort of rushing around at the final day. But I'm giving them a C- because 4 wins in a row after a pretty disastrous start, to be honest. But we mustn't forget how Villa lost that Champions League place on the last day last season. A really poor Man United team, bad refereeing decision. Villa weren't at it. Always seems to happen at Man United. Quite disappointing the way it ended. That fell into the summer and sort of fell into the start of the season. But Villa actually look better defensively this season than they have for about 18 months. Villa defensively in the last 18 months really, really, really open, but they were scoring at the other end. So they've sort of tightened up a bit, I believe, at the back. I do think it's a mid-table season for Villa, and hopefully go far in one of the cups. It's been too long since the cup. I'll give him a C-. I don't want to criticise Emery too much because I don't think Villa can do better than him.
And
Yeah, potentially a horrific summer for Villa. Like, I wonder where they would be had they sold Martinez and Watkins. Like, who was coming in? Is that like?
Yeah,
I guess that would have freed up cash in order to
give them time,
bring in some replacements. But I think one of the big issues with Villa at the minute is they're too old. They've got they need to bring in like 4 or 5 players next summer to refresh that team. Martinez is, I think they actually have the oldest squad in the Premier League. Martinez is quite old. Watkins was deemed too old to go to Manchester United. John McGinn won't have the legs to do what he does in Villa for the engine room. So, like, yeah, they're in dire need. I would say Emery's. You mentioned the Champions League. I think that probably did impact them. I think Emery, if he gets it back to mid-table to 9th or 10th, that's probably a fine season.
It's mad to think that this team, who you're right, quite old and really not very physical in midfield, all over the pitch actually not very physical, nearly got into the Champions League last season, and were in the quarterfinal of a Champions League and semi-final of FA Cup.
He's
overachieved
sort of at their
so
peak
much.
last year.
They were,
Villa's
peak was Villa's peak was probably a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But they somehow nearly got into the Champions League. And you look at them now, you're like, you're a mid-table team. You're right. There is a bit of a, but Emery's just got so much credit in the bank.
I was just going to say, would the fans won't turn on him? Would they turn on the board before they turn on him?
Well, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I just think football these days, and a team like Villa, the fans desperate to lift a trophy or just for some success, had a bit of it. I wouldn't put anything past any club getting rid of a manager that's got any credit, that's got any amount of credit in the bank.
Things can fall apart so quickly.
Really quickly.
For football clubs. And the prime example of that is a club that were in similar position to Aston Villa, Leicester City under Brendan Rodgers. I think they did 2 years in a row where they missed out on Champions League on the last day. The third year was the final straw. Straight down, relegated.
And just to remind, I like to remind everyone of this every so often. Someone always reminds me that, by the way, Leicester won the league. By the way, Leicester sacked the man who won them the league in 9 months. Anything can happen to a manager if you lose a few games.
You're listening to House of Football, brought to you by Coca-Cola, official partner of the Premier League.
House of Football is brought to you by Coca-Cola, official partner of the Premier League. And each week on the show, we're going to set a challenge for our guests, Enda and Gerard. And this week, we're talking strikers. And we want to know their top 5 strikers in the Premier League. Enda, who is your 5th best striker? Let's start from 5 to 1.
We're talking pure talent.
Yes.
Not what they have scored this season.
Yeah.
Okay. Want to just put that out there.
Okay.
Before people start
here we go.
I sense something controversial.
This will be good.
I'm going to go for Gyökeres as number 5. Hasn't hit the ground running at Arsenal so far. Don't think that's potentially all down to him, more down to the way Arsenal have been playing. But I think you don't score the amount of goals that he scored for Sporting just because of the league that you're playing in. There has to be a really top striker in there. And we saw at the Ballon d'Or presentations that he won that award for best striker in Europe. You don't get that by just playing in a weaker league. I think you have to be a top striker. So I'm going to go with Gyökeres. I don't think he's going to be in the top 3 scorers this season, but I do think he's in the top 5 of the quality of strikers that we're talking about.
Okay. And he's very nice hair.
He does. Fantastic.
Very nice hair as well.
Yeah.
Gerard, who's your 5th best striker?
He's got no hair. Jean-Philippe Mateta. He's just, I like the old, I wouldn't say he's like an old-fashioned striker, but I think when he came into the league, it was a bit like, maybe 5 or 10 goal season, short striker. His physicality, and for such a big guy, he's really good on the ball as well, I think, and he's just so effective for Palace. I don't know if it would work elsewhere.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think he'll get a move elsewhere?
I don't know. I think he's suited to Palace, but I really like watching him because he's just such a throwback. And Yeah, for me, he's in fifth. I could have put him in fourth actually, but if we're doing talent alone, I think he's probably fifth. I just had to mention him in there.
He is 28, so
Yeah.
still has a good few years ahead of him. Fourth, Enda.
Again, just going off talent. Benjamin Šeško. How do I defend this one?
Yes.
No, I think, look, from what we've seen with Manchester United so far, there is 100% a player in there. They just need to feed him. He's been unlucky with the fact that Cunha got injured very quickly as he came into the club, and then you had a little bit of a mess in terms of their form. I think you saw a quality player against Chelsea. He does provide extra bits that aren't in the box. Like he stretches the game quite a bit. What we're missing at the minute is just that in the box element, and I think he's making the runs. He is there and he is available. The problem is he's not being fed quick enough. Like the amount of times against Chelsea that Ahmed had the ball on the break with space in front of Šeško, and he would have just, all he had to do was play it into him, and he went for a looping cross to the back post, or just didn't get his head up. It's very, very frustrating watching as a United fan, but I do think he will come good.
How many goals will he get this season?
13.
Fourth, Gerard.
I'm going for Hugo Ekitike. I think he's taken to the Premier League like a duck to water, really. Yeah, I think. And now it's really interesting. I've got 3 Liverpool players in this top 5, and himself and Isak, I think, playing the same position. So I'm really interested to see how Slot's going to actually deal with that this season. But he just looks class. He's got a finish on him. His play around the box is really good. I can't really tell if he's a winger or a centre forward. I think he's a centre forward that could possibly play in a behind or on the wing. But Ekitike, for me, I don't think he was meant to be the headline at this season, but he's sort of taken it at early doors already. So yeah, Ekitike.
He doesn't get caught offside. I'm just so used to watching Darwin Núñez get caught offside every 2 minutes. Third, Enda.
I don't need to say much more than Jared said there. I'm going to go Hugo Ekitike. I'm a huge fan of his so far this season. He's got pace, he's got power, he's got skill, he's got finishing ability, as we've seen against Everton with his goal. It was an unbelievable finish. So, yeah, I mean, if it's going to be between him and Alexander Isak has a lot of work to do to get him out of the team. I don't think it will be between the two of them. I think he will get the two of them into the side at some point in time. Might not happen at the start of the season, but yeah, unbelievable player.
Gerard, third.
I'm going Isak. Has anyone considered? I know I put him third on my list here, but has anyone considered what happens if Isak doesn't set Liverpool alight? Have we thought about what actually happens there? Because it is so, again, universally accepted that he's going to be the man there. I think he might get rotated a little bit here, and I don't know, but I think just from what we've seen so far in the Premier League, I sort of had it in my mind that he signed maybe a summer and a half ago, but he's been in the Premier League for years, and he was fantastic for Newcastle, and I really liked him before that as well in Spain. But for me, great natural talent, fantastic sort of old-fashioned traits to him as well, with his height and ability in the box. So for me, he sort of sneaks in at number 3.
Do you think he's sitting on the bench seeing Ekitike score these
I
goals?
don't know,
Going,
I just think Slot. I think Slot's probably more brutal than we give him credit for. I don't know if he'll play every week.
Yeah,
I don't think Slot's afraid to just change it about. I mean, early doors, he said he's not fit enough. He's not fit ready enough yet. I mean, he had a weird summer, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's the weirdest summer you can have as a striker, just not knowing where you're going, and all the controversy around it, and people will have their opinions about how he acted and how Liverpool acted and how Newcastle acted, but it would have drained him, I think, and huge spotlight on him now. He does have to deliver, but I think he will, and I'm putting him third in this list.
And who's your number 2?
I'm going Alexander Isak as number 2. For all the reasons and beyond what Jared said, I think he is just a really, really strong player, natural ability, clearly has the mentality to play at a big club as well. I think you saw that with Newcastle. And I'm playing the long game. I'm playing the long game with my predictions, but I think people look too closely at transfers in terms of like positional and what they're doing, but clubs like Liverpool don't plan for one season at a time. They're planning 3 to 4 seasons in advance.
Yeah.
And I think Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike are Salah's replacement. Salah is not going to be at Liverpool much longer. He's not going to be at his peak much longer. He almost left this summer. And people look at Hugo Ekitike and Alexander Isak and they play in the same position. And it's like, why did they buy these two players? They're going to be competing for the same place. I don't think within a year or a year and a half they're going to be competing for the same place. And that's what Liverpool are looking at. That's what Slot is looking at. And Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike will be in the same side at some point for Liverpool. It might not be this season, but it might be next season.
Before we get to Gerard's number 2, House of Football is brought to you by Coca-Cola, official partner of the Premier League. And Coca-Cola have launched an epic fantasy football challenge called Beat the Icon over on the Fantasy Premier League app. To enter, grab a Coke, scan the QR code, enter your team, and if you beat the icon, you could be in with a shot of winning one of hundreds of prizes. T's and C's apply. Gerard, who are we going for number 2?
Going for Salah. I think, he's not traditionally a striker, he's more of a forward, but
He likes telling you he's a winger.
He's cheating a little bit.
I'm a winger.
He's cheating a little bit here.
Can I go for Salah?
You can go for
You can
Salah.
go for Salah.
I'll allow it.
He'll tell you he's a winger. He said,
forward winger, inside forward they used to call him, believe.
I'm a winger.
Salah, he's been written off a little bit. I think he's got another season and a half in him, and I don't think we've sort of seen the last of him yet. I mean, talent-wise, he's in this top 5, and then when you think that three Liverpool players are in this top 5, you kind of stop and think, wow, the next few years looks pretty promising. He's still got it in him. I think he's got another year and a half or 2 years of Premier League football in him. So for talent alone, he's my number 2.
And Enda, number 1.
Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
I think he's the best striker in the Premier League. Because we're not seeing Kylian Mbappe on a weekly basis with the way things have worked out with Real Madrid and TV-wise, it's very, very hard to get past the comparisons of Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland. But Erling Haaland is lighting the world on fire this year. He did so a couple of seasons ago. He also he scored like 34 goals last season, and people said he had a bad season. Like, that's the quality of striker we're talking about. And then when you're looking at, I know I mentioned Benjamin Sesko when I said that he's going to come good, but if you're comparing Manchester City to Manchester United and where Man United want to be, Benjamin Sesko is so far off where Erling Haaland is, and that just goes to show you how good Erling Haaland is and how good Man City are. And as long as he's in City's side, City will be in competition for trophies. And I think he's kind of got to the point now where he's almost captain of Manchester City. I think he saw that against Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. He leads the line. He's still young and he's basically the leader within the side. I think he's definitely the best striker in the Premier League.
And unless you're going completely left of field, Gerard, I presume yours is the same.
Yeah, I've gone for Haaland. There was a moment in the Arsenal game where he held the ball up kind of near the byline on his own, and I think Gary Neville said, we don't see that as much from Haaland in recent years. I think Pep has, in the last year or so, had such a shock that I think he's changed his style to suit Haaland more than ever before. I think that will benefit Haaland. I suspect it will benefit City, but I'm not 100% sure in the long run it will benefit City. But for Haaland himself, more aerial balls up to him. I think they're going to be playing to his strengths. I mean, he just left Gabriel for that goal. Just left him for dead. So Haaland's back to his best. Love him. Love his mentality, physicality, finishing, everything. So yeah, he's the best striker in the Premier League for me. Right,
we're going to now try and beat the icon with this week's challenge, which is an extra 6 points for big chances scored. As per usual, we'll have our goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, and 3 up top. So Enda, who are you going in goal this week to beat the icon?
It's actually quite a difficult week to pick a goalkeeper because all of the sides that are playing are fairly well matched, and it's hard to see a clean sheet being kept. Either that or it's going to be 0-0s all around. So either way, it's going to be a difficult one. There's a Monday Night Football fixture on this week, though, West Ham against Brentford. And I've been choosing quite a lot of my fantasy team based on who's playing West Ham because of how badly they've been playing this season. So I'm going to go with Caoimhin Keller and go here. I fancy Brentford to be able to keep a clean sheet, even though it's away from home. West Ham have been so poor this year that I reckon Brentford have Brentford's actually quite good defensively. It's more going forward that's been it's going to be their issue this year. So yeah, I'm going to go with Cian Kelleher.
Happy with Keller?
Yeah, take Helga. Yeah.
Defender, Gerard.
I'm going to go for Arsenal again. Gabriel, real good chance, I think, of a clean sheet there, and also attacking from corners as well. I think it's, if in doubt, look to Arsenal's defence. Really, if you fancy some points away at Fulham, Fulham always give Arsenal a good game at the Cottage, but I can see Arsenal continuing their sort of defensive format at Fulham.
And a midfield.
Mohamed Salah. They're playing at home to Man United. He's a midfielder on fantasy football. He's a winger, as we've discussed. So I'm going to go with Mohamed Salah. He always has chances against Man United, and he more often than not scores those chances against Manchester United. So yeah, he's been the bane of any Man United fans' existence in these fixtures, and yeah, I can see that continuing this week.
So we've got a big opportunity to get extra 6 points per player here if we can nab a goal for a big chance scored. Gerard, who are we putting up?
I'm going for... This is a forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going for Richarlison again.
Nice.
Because they're playing Villa at home. This is a hedge bet. Spurs Villa, there's always so many goals in it. It was 4-1 last season. And there's just something about Villa going to Spurs. They don't, they've won there a couple of times, but just last year sort of took the life out of them, really. And I think Richarlison's been on good form. I fancy him.
Yeah.
Yeah, against a Villa side, they're all at sorts, really.
And
I'm going to go with Jean-Philippe Mateta, playing at home against Bournemouth. I know Bournemouth are a very, very good side, and I don't like actually picking any players that are playing against them for a large amount of FPL, but given the opportunity to get a player who's going to get big chances, if it's going to happen for Crystal Palace, it's going to be Jean-Philippe Mateta. So I think I'm hoping that they'll be able to get something here.
do I have to ask who you putting in finally?
Haaland
against Everton.
Yeah, home to Everton. Everton they look good. Good defensively. They've really sort of bit of a turnaround and they got a strong defence. But just the way Haaland's playing, I think you'd be mad not to pick him for this.
So our team to beat the icon is Kelleher, Gabriel, Salah, Mateta, Richarlison and Haaland. And if you think you can beat the icon, grab a Coke, scan the QR code, enter your team. And if you do, you're in with a shot of winning one of hundreds of prizes. T's and C's apply. Join us next week for more House of Football brought to you by Coca-Cola.